The proclamation was read in the marble-lined chamber of the Imperial Senate with the kind of ceremonial boredom that usually accompanied trade agreements or tariff disputes. 50 human women, captured during raids along the fringe colonies, had been executed for treachery against the throne. The clerk's voice did not quiver. It carried the sentence with the same flat cadence one would use to announce the price of wheat. When the last syllable echoed into silence, a ripple of laughter, thin, scaly, and smug, skittered among the reptilian delegates clustered near the dais. To them, it was a practical decision, an entertaining footnote in the never-ending play of domination. A few other species murmured uneasily. The Stoilan elders, with their translucent skin and slow, contemplative speech, pressed their fingers together in a gesture of dismay. One of them whispered in a voice like falling sand, "They have made an error." The words barely carried across the chamber, swallowed by the smug satisfaction of the Empire's loyalists. In the far corner of the assembly, the human representative stood. He was unremarkable in size. No grand horns, no shimmering plumage, no forearms that glittered with jewelry. Just a man in a plain black suit, the sort that made him look like a visiting accountant rather than an envoy of a species. His hair was neatly parted. His shoes shined to a polite dullness. He carried no weapon, no entourage. Only a small, beaten leather notebook sat tucked under his arm, as though he were here to tally expenses. "Tragic news," he said softly. His voice did not boom. It slipped into the room like a knife laid on velvet. "We grieve for them." The room shifted. Some aliens chuckled at the understatement. Grieve? 50 women eliminated in a single sweep, and he sounded as though a bakery had misplaced its bread. Others glanced nervously, unsure if they had misread the tremor beneath his tone. His face remained composed, his lips bent in the faintest curve of courtesy, but his eyes, calm, gray, and unreadable, gave the impression of someone taking careful measurements. An overfed senator with tusks curling like ivory crescents leaned forward and sneered. "Fragile pets. They should have known better than to test imperial authority. You should thank us for the lesson, human." The man inclined his head. "We do thank you. We always appreciate a lesson." He opened his notebook, scribbled something in tight, deliberate strokes, and closed it with a gentle pat, as though sealing away the detail for safekeeping. His smile remained intact, a faint civilized line. The senator squirmed, suddenly uncomfortable without knowing why. From the gallery, younger alien aides leaned into one another, whispering. The human's politeness was too smooth, too careful, like glass covering a pit of spikes. One aide muttered, "Why isn't he angry?" Another replied, "Perhaps they lack the strength for outrage." The man cleared his throat and continued, "On behalf of Earth and her colonies, allow me to extend condolences to you." His pause was surgical. "For what you've set in motion." He folded his hands neatly in front of him, as if concluding a sermon. The words lingered awkwardly out of place, like thunder in a nursery. A senator barked a laugh. "Set in motion? You humans have no fleets worth counting. What motion can ants stir against giants?" The man tilted his head as if considering a child's riddle. His tone remained courteous. "Ants bite. Sometimes they bite hard enough to make giants dance." His voice never rose above the cadence of a dinner invitation, yet the imagery hung sharp and vivid. The chamber's temperature seemed to cool. An insectoid ambassador from the Arth, who had once fought against humans on a remote moon, clicked his mandibles uneasily. He remembered the stories. Soldiers crawling through acid bogs with their teeth clenched, refusing to die quietly. Mothers who carried their children across fire plains, singing songs even as their bodies burned. He stared at the human now and thought of those tales. The polite smile looked suddenly dangerous, like frost hiding the edge of a blade. The presiding minister waved dismissively. "This meeting is adjourned. Humanity has been warned." His gavel struck, ringing hollow. The senators rose in a rustle of robes and armor. Conversations broke out, boasts, jokes, dismissive speculation. Already, the crime was fading from their attention. Another trophy hung on the wall of conquest. Yet in quiet corners, some voices murmured warnings. The Stoilan elder spoke again, this time louder. "They are not as they seem." His companions shushed him, but his eyes lingered on the departing human. "We have seen storms build under gentle skies." Outside the chamber, the envoy walked the long corridors lined with alien banners. Servitors bustled past, paying him no mind. He paused at a window that overlooked the star-speckled void. His reflection hovered against the stars, tidy, modest, forgettable. He tapped his notebook with one finger, rhythm steady, almost musical. A tune hummed in his throat, soft and distinctly earthly. A lullaby meant for children, carrying across the empty hall like the memory of a warm kitchen. Two guards overheard and frowned. One whispered, "Is he singing?" The other shrugged, shifting uneasily. The melody felt wrong here, in the cold halls of power, like soil beneath sterile marble. They turned away quickly, glad when the sound faded. At the docking ring, an aide from a neutral faction approached him nervously. "Sir, I am sorry for your loss." Her voice was tentative, careful, as though apologizing to a predator. 50 lives. It is regrettable." The man smiled. "Thank you. Regret is the beginning of wisdom." He clasped her hand, warm and steady. "Take care of yourself. The galaxy will become interesting." He released her and walked on. The aide stood frozen, heart pounding, though she could not have explained why. Back aboard the shuttle, the envoy sat alone, the notebook open across his knees. Inside, each line was precise, written in shorthand that blended military notation with personal scrawl. At the bottom of the page, beneath casualty counts and names, he added one more line. "They laughed." He underlined it twice, then closed the book gently. From orbit, the planet's surface glittered with city lights, proud and arrogant. He gazed at it in silence. His reflection in the viewport smiled faintly back. But in his eyes there was something colder than vacuum. Patience sharpened into inevitability. He whispered to the stars, as though speaking to the executed women, as though promising them their due. "We'll take care of it." In the assembly chamber, long after the senators had gone, the Stoilan elder remained, staring at the empty seat where the human had stood. The elder's voice trembled with certainty. "The mistake has been made." He pressed his thin fingers together, listening for the echoes of a storm that had not yet broken but already roared in unseen skies. The galaxy did not yet know it, but the countdown had begun. The Senate's decree echoed across the galaxy in bursts of static and pomp, relayed by transmitters older than some stars. 50 human women executed. The message repeated in every system under imperial control, packaged as a warning, sealed with arrogance. For most species, it was a grim but forgettable line in the endless ledger of conquest. For a few, it was the beginning of unease. In the backwater markets of Tlyth, insectoid merchants clicked their mandibles uneasily when the news reached them. They remembered trading with human freighters that bargained with jokes, always offering a smile, always leaving behind echoes of laughter. Yet beneath that laughter, there had been something else, an edge like steel hidden in velvet. "They are odd creatures," one merchant muttered, arranging coils of wire. "They grieve with songs, yet fight with fire." His companion shifted, restless. "And now the Empire has killed their mothers." On the crystalline moon of Vera, where diplomats sipped nectar in luminous halls, whispers spread faster than light. Some scoffed. "Humans are sentimental. They will weep, then move on." Others shook their heads, recalling scattered legends. A Veran archivist, her translucent body shimmering with inner light, recited a tale of Marines who had fought barehanded in methane storms, of nurses who had stared down plasma rifles while shielding children. "They endure," she whispered. "They endure too much." Her words slipped into silence, unwelcome, like an omen at a feast. Meanwhile, the Empire congratulated itself. In war rooms carved from obsidian, admirals traced charts of human space with disdain. "They have no fleets," scoffed one, his carapace gleaming beneath banners. "No discipline. They will scatter like dust." A chorus of agreement followed, armored fists pounding tables. Yet not all were convinced. An Arth captain, who had once survived a skirmish with human patrols, kept silent. He remembered a voice in the darkness, human soldiers whispering jokes even as their blood spilled, advancing through fire as though pain were a companion. The captain still woke some nights hearing the laughter, too steady, too calm. On a neutral station orbiting a cold star, the human envoy extended invitations. A dinner, polite and simple. The gesture baffled the alien envoys, who hosted a feast after losing 50 citizens in a massacre, who smiled so warmly while their grief was fresh. Curiosity outweighed caution, and they came. One by one, the delegates arrived, robes brushing metal floors, mandibles clacking nervously, eyes darting with suspicion. The hall was modest, nothing like the Empire's decadent palaces. A long wooden table carved, they realized, from actual earth oak, ran down the center. The air smelled faintly of smoke and bread. Plates were laid with care. At the head sat the envoy, sleeves rolled back, as though he were a host rather than a statesman. He welcomed each alien with a handshake or bow, his smile gentle, his tone conversational. "Please sit. Try the cornbread. A family recipe." They sat uneasy, the wood creaking beneath bodies unused to such furnishings. The Arth delegate poked at the food with distaste. The Stoilan elder, however, closed his eyes and inhaled the scent, sighing softly. "Strange," he murmured, "to feel warmth at a table when the stars burn cold." The envoy chuckled. "That's humanity for you. We like warmth. We like to eat together, even when things are complicated." His eyes flickered, just for a heartbeat, toward the Imperial observers stationed at the edge of the room. Their armor gleamed. They did not sit. They watched. Dinner began with polite conversation. The envoy asked after Varan poetry, praised Arth engineering, even teased a reptilian senator about his species' inability to digest starch. Laughter rose, hesitant at first, then louder. Jokes flowed, anecdotes tumbled. For a moment, it seemed like any banquet. Aliens eating bread they didn't quite trust, chuckling at idioms they barely understood. Yet, beneath the surface, tension coiled. At last, the Arth delegate leaned forward, mandibles twitching. "You are calm. Too calm. 50 of your kind executed. And you serve us bread." His words clicked sharp as talons. The laughter died. The envoy set down his fork, dabbing politely at his lips with a cloth. "What would you prefer I serve? Rage? Fury? Fire?" His tone was light, but his eyes pinned the Arth like a blade. "Humans grieve differently. We make sure our guests are fed before we let the storm loose." His smile never wavered. The room shivered. A reptilian senator barked a laugh, masking unease. "You bluff. You cannot strike at the Empire." The envoy inclined his head. "Bluffing is for cards. We play baseball. Ever hear of it?" The senator shook his head. "No." The envoy leaned back, smile curling. "Then you're already behind in the count." The phrase meant nothing to them, yet something in his tone made spine stiffen. It sounded like a warning wrapped in honey. The Stoilan elder whispered to his peers, "Do you not hear it? He speaks with knives sheathed in sugar." Reports soon followed the dinner. A supply convoy vanished near the asteroid belts of Charon. An outpost went dark, no distress call, only silence. The Empire brushed it off as raiders, pirates, coincidence. But the whispers grew. Traders reported coded broadcasts on human frequencies. Nursery rhymes, American folk songs, whistled into the void. "This land is your land," one channel repeated endlessly, until an entire listening post went mad from a sound. Soldiers joked nervously, calling it harmless. Yet they flinched whenever the melody crept into static. In the Empire's council, an admiral slammed his fist on the table. "They dare mock us with songs?" The chamber laughed, though hollowly. "What is the worst they will do? Throw baseballs at our cruisers." Across the table, the human envoy sat with folded hands, polite as ever. He smiled faintly. "Baseballs can fly faster than you think." His tone was almost apologetic, as though explaining gravity to children. The laughter faltered. Alien societies argued in private. Some urged restraint. "Leave humans alone, they are dangerous." Others demanded suppression. Merchants whispered about vanishing freighters. Priests preached that the execution had cursed the stars. A rumor surfaced that the executed women had sung before dying, sung lullabies that carried across the execution square until soldiers trembled. The rumor spread like fire, unprovable yet unstoppable. In markets and temples, beings repeated the phrase. They sang. Each repetition deepened the unease. The Arth captain, who had once faced human soldiers, found himself cornered in a tavern by colleagues boasting of conquest. He said nothing until they mocked human fragility. Then he spoke, voice low, steady. Fragile? They are glass, yes. But broken glass cuts deeper than steel. His companions fell silent, the laughter soured in their throats. The envoy traveled quietly between stations, always with his notebook, always polite. He carried no guards, no banners, yet rooms fell quiet when he entered. He shook hands, told jokes, offered bread. And everywhere he went, whispers followed. Some called him harmless. Others called him a herald. The Stoilan elders called him inevitable. One evening, aboard a neutral station, an imperial admiral confronted him in a corridor. The admiral loomed, armored, bristling with weapons. Enough games, he snarled. Your species is weak. Your smiles fool no one. The envoy tilted his head, expression thoughtful. If that's true, he said, why are your hands shaking? The admiral glanced down, his claws trembled. Rage surged, but he found no words. The envoy smiled, stepped aside, and continued down the hall, humming softly. The admiral stood frozen, his own breath shallow. By the close of that cycle, the whispers had hardened into warnings. A merchant vessel overheard a human transmission before vanishing. The storm comes. Bring umbrellas. The phrase was nonsense, yet every translator agreed on the words. Umbrellas. Storm. The galaxy did not know what it meant, but the unease deepened. Empires are built on certainty, and certainty was crumbling. In the war room, another admiral asked, half sneering, half worried, what are they planning? What trap lies behind their smiles? The human envoy was present, invited only as courtesy. He lifted his notebook, tapping the cover gently. Planning. He chuckled, voice soft. We're just warming up. The room stilled. The words felt like thunder, disguised as rain. The Empire, arrogant still, chose to laugh again. But fewer laughed this time. Those who remembered human eyes, human songs, human endurance, they began to pray. The whisper spread. They're smiling too much. They're too calm. They're planning something. And somewhere, hidden beneath polite banquets and lullabies, the storm gathered. The envoy closed his notebook, stood, and said with perfect courtesy, you'll see. The first true cracks in the Empire's certainty appeared not on a battlefield, but in the silence of its own networks. Fleets moved as scheduled, convoys left their ports, soldiers drilled in formation, and then, without explanation, an entire sector of communications went dark. At first, it seemed like technical failure. Engineers were dispatched, complaints filed. But when the technicians arrived, they found outposts abandoned, corridors littered with untouched meals, power still running. Not a single body. Only one message etched into the steel of a command room wall, written in jagged English letters. We're still here. The Empire tried to bury the discovery, but news seeped out. Traders whispered it in cantinas. Mercenaries muttered it over drinks. Fear began to nibble at the edges of arrogance. The envoy remained calm. He moved from world to world, notebook always under his arm, smile always intact. At a gathering on a neutral station, he spoke of farming, of rain cycles, of baseball. The aliens listened uneasily. One Arth diplomat interrupted, mandibles twitching. Your people are sabotaging us, he accused. The envoy's smile deepened, almost sympathetic. Sabotage? No. We prefer gardening. Sometimes you have to prune things back to let the rest grow. The metaphor was simple, almost gentle, yet the Arth ambassador shivered, as though hearing a threat wrapped in lullaby. Reports mounted. Imperial warships went missing, not destroyed, not damaged, simply gone. Entire crews vanished, as though plucked from the stars. On colonies near human space, Shadows of unknown vessels appeared at the edges of sensors. Crude, patchwork ships cobbled from scrap, yet moving with terrifying coordination. The Empire dismissed them as raiders, but the raiders never sold their spoils. They erased, they disappeared. They left behind only silence and rumors. A Varen trader, pale with fear, claimed he had seen one of the ships up close. They were laughing, he whispered. The humans. They laughed over open channels while cutting through hulls. Laughed as though nothing mattered. The trader refused to leave his homeworld again. In Senate chambers, debates turned shrill. Some senators demanded crushing retaliation, others warned caution. The human envoy sat quietly through it all, taking notes in his book. When asked directly what his people intended, he offered only a polite shrug. We're preparing for the season. No one knew what he meant, but the way he said it made the air taste of iron. An Arth general scoffed, slamming the table. You speak in riddles. Humans are cowards. Face us openly if you dare. The envoy looked up, eyes calm. Openly? No. Why would we? That would be boring. The words struck the chamber like a whip, arrogance twisted into menace. The Empire dispatched fleets to human colonies, expecting resistance. Instead, they found ghost towns. Cities stood empty, crops tended, but no farmers. Houses left neat, beds made, meals uneaten on tables. On one planet, they discovered children's chalk drawings across the streets. Crude stick figures of aliens with excess over their eyes. At the edge of the settlement, a single phrase painted in red. We're waiting. The soldiers laughed uneasily at first, but many refused to sleep that night. Some swore they heard children singing beyond the hills. Alien societies struggled to interpret the shift. The Stoilan elders urged retreat, insisting that humans had slipped into a mode of war no one understood. They do not fight for conquest, one elder murmured. They fight for memory, for vengeance, for something deeper than our empires can measure. Others dismissed it as superstition. Yet those who had seen human endurance firsthand, those who had witnessed mothers cradle dying children and still find the strength to smile, began to whisper prayers in secret. At a private council, an Arth admiral confronted the envoy directly. Your fleets attack our convoys. Your saboteurs infect our systems. Admit it. The envoy leaned back, crossing his legs neatly. Convoys? Systems? No, Admiral. That wasn't us. He paused, letting the silence stretch like a wire. That was just the warm-up band. He chuckled softly, shaking his head as though at some private joke. The Admiral's mandibles clicked in unease. Humor as a blade, it was a uniquely human cruelty. The missing fleets multiplied. Planetary governors reported strange patterns in the night skies, blinking lights forming words, human languages scrolling across constellations. Some claimed to see faces in the stars, children's drawings enlarged into cosmic graffiti. Scientists scoffed, but soldiers whispered that it was real. Fear spread faster than fact. An alien merchant ship picked up a faint human broadcast in the void, a woman's voice singing an old lullaby. Hush, little baby, don't say a word. The crew swore they felt watched, though no ship appeared. When they docked, 3 of them were missing. Only their uniforms remained, neatly folded on bunks. The Empire cracked down with brutality. Suspected human sympathizers were executed, colonies burned, fleets doubled in patrol. But the harder they struck, the more the humans slipped away. They didn't fight pitch battles. They whispered, they vanished, they struck where pride blinded the enemy. Every imperial mistake fed them. Every dismissal sharpened their edge. In quiet bars, aliens began to ask each other not if the Empire would fall, but when. The answers came in nervous laughs, yet the question lingered. The envoy attended every meeting, every banquet, every council. He remained polite, steady, unthreatening. Yet small details betrayed him. Once, when a senator mocked humanity, his hand tightened around his pen until the wood snapped. Another time, when an admiral boasted of extermination, the envoy's eyes glinted, cold as steel under snow. Always, though, he returned to his smile, his jokes, his bread. Eat well, he would say. The journey's long. The words felt like a prophecy. One night, on a neutral station orbiting an amber star, the envoy walked into a private lounge where alien envoys muttered over drinks. Their voices hushed when he entered. He smiled warmly, ordered tea, sat quietly. After a few moments, one alien dared to ask, "Why do your people smile so much? Even now?" The envoy stirred his tea slowly, the spoon clicking against the glass. "Because," he said softly, "smiling confuses predators. And sometimes it reminds us we're still human." The answer was simple, almost tender, but the room chilled. Smiles as armor, as weapons. No one spoke after that. The Empire grew frantic. They launched a massive campaign against the outer colonies, expecting decisive victory. Instead, their fleets found themselves ambushed in asteroid fields where every rock seemed prepositioned. Minefields detonated in perfect patterns, as though choreographed. Imperial ships reported human voices on comms, calm and steady. "Strike 3. You're out." Then silence, followed by explosions. Survivors swore the humans were toying with them, dragging battles out for sport. The Empire lost thousands of ships without seeing a single human fleet in open formation. At last, the Senate demanded answers from the envoy. They summoned him to the chamber, tension crackling in the air. Senators shouted accusations, demanded explanations. The envoy stood in his usual spot, notebook in hand, smile faint. He let them rage until silence fell, exhaustion heavy. Then he spoke. "You want answers? Fine. You killed our mothers. And now you've met ours." He removed his gloves. His hands were scarred, calloused, marked by years of struggle. He held them up for all to see. "Do you know what a human mother does when threatened? She does not surrender. She does not kneel. She fights until the stars fall dark." His voice never rose, but the chamber shook as if thunder had rolled through it. The Stoilan elder whispered, voice trembling, "The storm is broken." The envoy turned his gaze upon him, and for the first time the smile faded. What replaced it was colder, sharper, inevitable. "No," he said softly. "The storm has just begun." The senators shifted, some pale, some furious, some trembling. The imperial minister slammed his gavel, voice hoarse with fear disguised as authority. "This is madness. Humanity cannot challenge the Empire." The envoy looked at him with steady eyes, scarred hands still raised. "We don't challenge empires. We end them." The chamber fell into silence, so heavy it felt alive. Outside, through the massive windows, the stars burned indifferent. Yet for those present, the galaxy itself seemed to lean closer, waiting for what would come next. The envoy lowered his hands, slid his gloves back on, and closed his notebook with a final deliberate snap. The sound echoed like a gunshot. He smiled once more, courteous, almost kind. "Now," he said, voice smooth as velvet, "shall we continue?" The war began not with the thunder of fleets, but with silence. Imperial armadas moved to the front, their banners glittering, their admirals swollen with pride, and yet the stars yielded nothing. Sensors flickered, coordinates slipped, routes collapsed. The star maps they had trusted for centuries twisted against them. Gates flickered out, hyperspace lanes fractured into dead ends. Entire divisions found themselves stranded in systems without fuel or resupply. They shouted into void comms that no longer answered, and in the static, a faint human voice whispered lullabies. The Empire's generals dismissed it as sabotage, until one by one, their fleets vanished into that silence, swallowed without trace. Then came the first blows. Crude ships, scavenged from a dozen worlds, surged from asteroid belts and nebulae. They were ugly, asymmetrical things, patched with steel plates, and painted with symbols no alien could decipher. Circles, flags, words scrawled in English. The ships carried no sleek design, but they moved like predators, cutting through imperial formations with impossible coordination. From open channels came laughter, whistled tunes, baseball announcers reciting impossible plays. Entire fleets broke before they understood they were outmatched. The envoy no longer smiled in public councils. He didn't need to. His calm presence was enough. The way he took notes while reports of disaster poured in. Senators raged, demanded answers, accused him of orchestrating chaos. He simply raised his gray eyes and asked, "Do you hear them singing?" They demanded clarification, but he only hummed softly, the tune threading through their fury like a noose tightening. When the session ended, the senators left shaken, their robes heavy with sweat. On the front lines, soldiers broke under the strain. They were used to enemies who fought for land or resources, foes who surrendered once beaten. Humans did neither. They sabotaged fuel depots, poisoned supply chains, lured fleets into minefields disguised as safe routes. They left messages in places they had no right to be, carved into command decks, scrawled on bulkheads, written across moons visible from orbit. Strike 3. You're out. The phrase became a curse, whispered by alien officers who no longer laughed. It carried the weight of inevitability, like a drumbeat toward execution. The Empire unleashed its full might. Armadas 10,000 strong surged against the colonies, burning worlds, executing civilians, choking skies with fire. Yet every atrocity fed the storm. Every scream hardened humanity's resolve. And always, always, the humans smiled. Captured soldiers laughed as they bled, whispering jokes through cracked teeth. Civilians sang nursery rhymes while bombs fell, voices carrying across the airwaves like defiance turned into him. "Hush, little baby," they sang, until even the most hardened alien troops shuddered. In the Senate, desperation grew. One by one, allies abandoned the Empire, unwilling to face the storm. The Stoilan elders withdrew to their crystal halls, muttering prayers for survival. The Varens offered neutrality. Even the Arth, once loyal dogs of the Empire, began to pull back. The ministers screamed betrayal, but the truth was clear. No one wanted to stand against the smiling species any longer. The tide had turned. And still, the envoy waited. He traveled from chamber to chamber, his notebook filling with details. He spoke politely, thanked hosts for meals, shook hands with the courtesy of a priest. But his presence burned like acid. Admirals avoided his gaze. Senators found their words faltering when his eyes met theirs. He no longer needed threats. His silence was worse. The final blow came with perfect cruelty. The Empire's capital world, the jewel of its dominion, bristled with fleets. Defenses unmatched, fortresses carved into moons, armies layered across continents. It was impenetrable, untouchable, the heart of centuries of conquest. And yet, one night, its skies flickered. From orbit, satellites broadcast a single image across every channel. The faces of 50 human women, their eyes calm, their lips curved in faint, knowing smiles. The message beneath read simply, "Thank you for your sacrifice." Panic erupted. Civilians rioted, soldiers trembled. The Empire realized the execution had not been a punishment. It had been bait. The women had gone willingly, their deaths planned, their images turned into rallying fire. They had given themselves as the match. The Empire had struck it, and now the galaxy burned. In the chaos, human fleets revealed themselves at last. Not ragged scavengers, not fragments of rebellion, but an armada hidden in plain sight. Ships black as night, bristling with weapons, each carrying names painted in white. Mother's Wrath, Mercy's End, Home Plate. They emerged from the void like phantoms, surrounding the capital before alarms could sound. Imperial fleets rose to meet them, but morale was already shattered. The battle was a slaughter. Human ships moved with terrifying precision, their fire coordinated by voices calm and steady. Between volleys, soldiers broadcast jokes, baseball commentary, lullabies. They fought as though enjoying a game, as though destruction itself was entertainment. The Empire cracked in hours. The Emperor himself called for parley. He stood in the throne hall, armored in gold, banners streaming, guards bristling with weapons. He demanded to face the human envoy. And so the man came, notebook in hand, steps measured, suit immaculate. He bowed politely, as though greeting an old neighbor, then raised his eyes. The hall trembled with silence. "You defy the Empire," the Emperor thundered. "You bring ruin to all. Why? For 50 women? For sentiment. His voice echoed against marble walls, desperate. The envoy tilted his head, studying him like a specimen. Why? His voice was soft, deliberate. Because you thought death would frighten us. You thought execution would end us. You forgot what humans do when we lose family. He stepped forward, gray eyes gleaming with something colder than fury. We don't surrender. We don't beg. We rebuild stronger. We avenge thoroughly. And when we're done, we smile, because you'll never understand it. His tone never rose, but the emperor recoiled as though struck. The guard shifted, unsure, sweat running down scaled brows. The envoy opened his notebook, flipped to the last page. He read aloud names, 50 of them, steady, reverent. When he finished, he closed the book with a snap that echoed like a gunshot. You didn't kill them, he said. You lit the fire they asked us to carry. His smile returned, faint, polite, merciless. So thank you, Your Majesty. You gave us permission. The emperor tried to roar defiance, but his voice cracked. His guards lowered their weapons, unwilling to fight. The envoy turned, walked from the throne hall, leaving silence in his wake. Minutes later, the palace shook. The human fleets opened fire, tearing through defenses, carving the capital into flame. The empire collapsed not with glory, but with whimpers, its arrogance devoured by fire and song. Across the galaxy, alien worlds watched in awe and terror. Some cheered, others prayed. But all understood. The humans had revealed themselves. No longer curious, no longer underestimated. They had shown the truth beneath their smiles. They were apex predators wrapped in courtesy, strategists disguised as comedians, destroyers who offered cookies before they burned empires. And now, no one would forget. The envoy returned to his shuttle, sitting quietly as the flames of the capital painted the sky. He removed his gloves, scarred hands resting on the notebook. He whispered softly, not to the Senate, not to the emperor, but to the stars. Rest well, mothers. We've done what you asked. His eyes closed briefly, as though in prayer. When they opened, the smile returned, faint and steady. Now, he murmured, the real work begins. In the void beyond, human ships formed patterns among the stars, signals broadcast in coded light. To most, it was meaningless. But for those who could read it, one phrase burned clear across the heavens. This was only the beginning.